is in it for us to give away the Chagos and pay for the privilege of doing so? Do it.
Yeah, I will. There was a non-binding...
You don't have to explain to me simply, because I'm not an idiot, but you can explain it to me because you're on my show, so go ahead. I'm not suggesting
you're an idiot. I'm criticising you for not pushing back.
What you just watched matters because this wasn't a technical discussion. It was a very simple public interest question being asked live, repeatedly, to someone defending government policy. Not how the deal works. Not what international law says. Just one thing. What does the UK actually gain? And instead of an answer, you immediately saw tension, interruption, and resistance to the question itself.
Can I just quickly push back very quickly on a couple of things? We are not ruining our country, Bev, with immigration. Millions and millions of people in Britain are immigrants or the children or grandchildren of immigrants. And to say that we're ruining our country is a really outrageous slur. You talk about people in the queue at the doctors. A lot of the doctors and nurses and hospital porters who contribute to keeping us alive and keeping us well in Britain are themselves either immigrants or from immigrant stock. So let's get that straight. And by the way, there was a chap you had on recently, a few minutes ago, I was watching, called Niall Gardner, who described our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who, by the way, I think did make a mistake in his appointment of Peter Mandelson, but to describe him as a traitor over the Chagos deal, and now backed by Trump, apparently, in his U-turn on the U-turn. And for you, Bev, not to push back on that, come on, Starmer is not a traitor.
This is where the conversation shifts from policy into emotion. The moment criticism is treated as something offensive rather than legitimate.
What's in it for us?
He's the Prime Minister of our country trying to work in the national interest.
What's in it for us? What is in it for us to give away the Chagos and pay for the privilege of doing so? Do it.
Yeah, I will. There was a non-binding...
You don't have to explain to me simply, because I'm not an idiot, but you can explain it to me because you're on my show, so go ahead.
I'm not suggesting you're an idiot. I'm criticising you for not pushing back on one of your guests who described our Prime Minister as a traitor.
Go on then, tell me. What's in it for us?
I will tell you.
Okay, I'm asking you... All right, Matt. I'm asking you the question that you want to hear. You wanted me to ask him. I'll ask you, what is in it for the UK to give away the Chagos Islands and pay for the privilege of doing so?
So there was a non-binding decision in an international court that said that the Chagos Islands should really belong to Mauritius. And the concerns let me just make the argument very quickly. The concerns, first of all, by the previous Tory government. No, because I want you to answer my question.
Notice how the question is still unanswered. The discussion moves everywhere except the point being raised.
I don't need an explanation of the legal backstory. I've heard that till I'm blue in the face. What I want from you, because we're not getting it from the government, and if you think Starmer is so fabulous for the UK, you tell me, Matt Stadlen, what is in it for the UK to give away the Chagos and pay for the privilege of doing so?
I'm just explaining it to you, Bev, you're interrupting me. Because there was this non-binding decision that could one day have become binding, then under those circumstances, we would have found ourselves potentially in a very significant pickle, because guess what? This country still believes in international law. Donald Trump may not, but we do. And as a consequence of that, the government is actually trying to work in our national interest and the interests of our defence as well to make sure that that scenario doesn't happen. And for one of your guests to describe those attempts as traitorous is truly outrageous of him. And I'm really surprised, Bev, that you didn't pick him up on it, because if you think that our Prime Minister is a traitor, that's disgraceful.
Here, explanation replaces justification. Those are not the same thing.
Do I think he's a traitor? Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to Chagos, I am not seeing him present. And there are people in this town right now, who are ferreting around, going into offices in this city, trying to convince this administration, potentially lying through their teeth about the situation with Chagos. Those people will not come on this show, Matt. They won't talk to the GB News viewers. They won't talk to the British public to put their case forward, the likes of Jonathan Powell, to say why they are here, convincing Trump to go along with this ludicrous deal so that we can apologise for our colonial past. They won't convince, they won't talk to the public about it.
Donald Trump.
This is the escalation. Once traitor is said openly, the issue can't be brushed aside anymore.
Your argument then, and I thought you were rather a fan of Donald Trump. I'm not, let me be clear. But your argument is that the president is too stupid to understand that a deal that Starmer is striking, for which you think he is traitorous, he's too stupid to understand that deal.
I am saying that in a busy administration with a huge amount to deal with, when you take a representative from the government, if you take a British representative who is there in place of the Prime Minister, and Donald Trump will trust them, he will trust them on their word. Rubio, they will trust them. And when they lay out to them what it is that this means, they're believing them. And I think they're lying through their teeth about what this deal is. And I don't think they're being clear about what the implications are for national security in America.
At this point, responsibility starts getting shifted, not owned.
But you still haven't told me. All you told me is we've got ourselves into a little bit of a legal knot and Starmer's doing his best. That's absolute balderdash, Matt. You still haven't given me the reason, the logic as to why we're giving away Chagos and paying for the privilege.
So you and Niall Gardner are clever enough to understand this deal, but the British government is too stupid or too traitorous, and Donald Trump is too stupid to understand it. Last year in May, Marco Rubio supported the deal. Trump then, over the Greenland fiasco, which was outrageous, did a U-turn. And then today, to my surprise, and to a lot of people's surprise, he's U-turned on the U-turn. But apparently your guest, who thinks that our Prime Minister is a traitor, your guest is clever enough to understand the problems, but Trump is too stupid. I thought you were a fan of Trump. That surprises me.
Now the argument becomes about trust, not outcomes.
Niall Gardner is more committed to this topic and understanding it inside and out than anybody else in this city. And his argument that the needs of the British people are not being respected is completely worthy of listening to, and it is legitimate. So whatever the reasoning is, and you still haven't given me the reason why it is in the British interest to give away the Chagos and pay for the privilege. You can't tell me. I mean, you can't even sit there and say it's because we are disgusting colonialists. If you sat there and said because we're disgusting colonialists and they deserve reparations, at least have the testicles to do that, Matt.
Because we don't want to find ourselves in a position where an international court forces us to give up those islands. Therefore, we wanted to strike a deal whereby we would be able to lease them for another 90 years.
Well, then in that case, they could come over here and they could say to Donald Trump, the previous government got us in a bit of a legal mess, which is not in the interest of the British public, and we need you to help us sort this out because you can nix it. And they haven't done that, so that's clearly...
The public interest is mentioned but never directly addressed. This wasn't a dramatic confrontation. It was actually something much more revealing than that. A government policy was being defended, but the defense never rested on benefits, improvements, or outcomes for the public. Instead, it relied on obligation, legal pressure, and the idea that there was simply no alternative. You heard the question clearly. So did everyone in that studio. What does the UK get in return? And across this entire exchange, that question never received a direct answer. Not once. That's important, because when policies are genuinely strong, the benefits are easy to explain. They don't require long detours through legal backstories or appeals to authority. What you saw instead was discomfort with being asked to justify the decision at all, as if asking what's in it for us was somehow unreasonable. This is why public trust keeps breaking down, not because people don't understand complexity, but because they recognize avoidance when they see it. When explanations replace answers and process replaces accountability, confidence disappears. So the frustration you felt watching this isn't accidental. It's the result of decisions being defended around the public, not for them. And the real question now is simple. Is this how major national decisions should be justified? And would you feel confident if this is how accountability looks? If you found this breakdown useful, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications.